14th of February 2022, and you're very welcome to the state we're in. My guest this afternoon is Deputy Mattie McGrath, who is the leader of the Rural Independent Group. You're very welcome, Mattie.
Well, Margaret, and a happy Valentine's Day to yourself and to all the ladies in all our lives.
Well, Mattie, there's just so many issues that we could chat about, but today we're going to speak specifically about climate change. And I suppose at the outset, I want to put my own cards on the table. I know that there is a tiny fringe group on Twitter that, have called both myself and yourself out as climate change deniers. But in my particular case, I am certainly not a climate change denier. I was the Green School coordinator in my school before I retired, and under my stewardship, the school managed to get a number of green flags. I have a master's in ecology. The subject of my master's degree was climate change. I have written a book on climate change, Green Schools Meeting the Challenge of Climate Change, and I've given a TED talk on climate change. So climate change is an issue that is very, very close to my heart, going back, I suppose, almost 20 years at this stage. So that's where I'm coming from. How about yourself, Mattie? Do you believe that climate change is happening, or do you think that it's a fake?
No, I don't think it's a fake. I certainly am not a denier of climate change, but I am somebody who lives in the real world and like to think that I live in the real world. And now I know, and we can see the cost of living been dramatically escalated, with the mitigating measures that we're supposed to be taking. It's just too much of a leap into the abyss without any rationale being provided, without any reasonable debate. It's something like some of the other debates now we've had in this country in recent years. One narrative, and if you're not on that bandwagon, you're not allowed to speak. So narrative must be questioned. We must have, as I said, real discussion. And we as Rural Independent Group, we tabled over 90 amendments to the Climate Action Bill. None of them were accepted. And now, unfortunately, the people can see, the massive increases that are cost of home heating oil, the cost of fuel for the cars, and cost of all kinds of, and to do with electricity, or indeed this oil-based, even the insulation for the building of houses is almost 2.5 times increase in the last year or so. So I live in the real world. So we must try and bring the people with us. A carrot and stick approach is very important. This heavy hand and just up the increases. And the increases are staggering that are proposed and have been proposed. Just to put it in context, in actual fact, the roadmap that we've set out on now, up to 2030, will cost this country and the taxpayers, every man, woman and child, 3 times what the bank bailout costs. That might put some bit of real politic on it. And people are feeling this now, as I said, when they fill up their cars, when they want to fill up their oil tank, they can't fill it, or half fill it, or partially fill it. When they turn on their immersions, when they turn on their electricity. And the worst part of it all is that we have shut down some of our alternative methods and our methods of power generation. And so we're going to be dependent on one. And I was born and raised on a very mixed farm. And thankfully, my late dad was everything from sheep to cattle to pigs to corn to beet to potatoes. And it was always a mixture of one good crop or two that kept you going. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. You have to have a backup and plan B.
Mattie, I take it then that you are saying you do not deny that climate change is happening, but your problem is with the government's response to climate change. And we'll have a look now at you in action in the Dáil last week as you challenged the Taoiseach and accused him of being out of touch. We'll have a look now.
The government imposed carbon tax, now at €41 per tonne of carbon, after last October's budget, is clearly having a bruising impact on the cost of home heating oil, electricity, petrol and diesel. Is now the leading cause of inflation here in Ireland. Taoiseach, I ask you today, why have you completely ignored the European Commission's developed toolbox strategy of measures which encourages member states to cut taxes and levies on motor fuels and home heating oil and electricity bills? I don't know when's the last time you pulled up at a filling station and filled your own car. Did you have a driver? You had when you were leader of Fianna Fáil, you have state drivers now and everything else, so you don't know, you're out of touch completely. I asked you to do an immediate reversal of the carbon tax, and you're flatly refusing that, and do an impact analysis. I'm also asking, given that there's such inflationary policies here, that we need a mini budget. Nothing short of a mini budget. And if we need legislation to do it, we in the Rural Independents will bring it forward, and you can vote against it, which you probably will. You don't want to help the people. You want to let them perish and die in the ditches. That's what they're going to do. And that's been your resident data in politics. The hell of it to people. Once I'm all right, Jack, I'm fine. And you accuse me of being dishonest when I tell you the baked, naked truth. Everyone dog in the street knows it. That it's your policies that cause the inflation. There are international factors, yes, definitely. But we have a perfect storm here, and it's 𝗪𝗁. You want people to have no cars, you want to be able to have no services in rural Ireland, herd them all into the cities.
Deputy Matty McGrath challenging Micheál Martin or Taoiseach last week in the Dáil about the government's response to climate change. So, Matty, basically what I'm hearing from you is this, that the government's response to climate is such that it is impoverishing the poorest people who in actual fact have a very low carbon footprint, as it were, and then the rich people who have a jet-set lifestyle have the money and the wherewithal to upgrade their houses, to insulate them and so on, and to continue their lifestyle of jetting around the world. Private planes, for example, are not subject to carbon taxes. What would you like to see happening going forward, Matty?
Fair play is fine play with me and any day of the week. And a KPMG report has stated quite clearly that about 3.8 billion will be taken out of the rural economy by the actions that we have launched. The rural economy cannot support that. Remember the last number of recessions that I remember 3 in all, agriculture and rural Ireland dragged us up from the doldrums and got the country going again. But this constant and sustained attack on rural people and city people, I'm not the one to have using that divide, but I'm talking about the rural economy today, because the price of agri-diesel is almost €1 a litre. I mean, every bit of produce is going to go up then after that. The same way with the making of bread, the bakeries, the van deliveries, everything. They keep piling on taxes on the fuel. Everything follows. And I believe, honestly, that we're only halfway in these desperate increases so far. There's much more than 50% to come. And the government are welded together. Sinn Féin have backed them all the way on climate change. They'll huff and puff. They have a motion this week about the cost of living. But when I called a vote a year and a half ago now in the Dáil about the climate change bill, only 9 others, all independents and myself, that was 10 people voted against it. And now they're wringing their hands and saying they're not for it. So it's kind of a sexy bandwagon, to be honest, with climate change. Anybody like me that questions it, is a climate change denier. That couldn't be further from the truth. I understand climate change. I understand the land, the soil, the changes in the spring. This winter, for instance, was so mild, thankfully for people who are trying to heat their houses. But we haven't had a winter as such. I live in the real world and I don't depend on laptops for my information. I'm out there. I understand how the climate is changing, but we need to, as I said, praise the people and support them. Take the grant scheme, the grandiose scheme, retrofit, last week announced. A lovely pipe dream. I have people in this office waiting over 2 years to be assessed for the SEI grant scheme for their houses. They're the poor people. Fine, now we must pay €500 for an assessment. Like you said, the people who use the fly in the sky with the jets and the well-off can pay for these schemes, 50% or whatever, or 40% and get the grants. They'll all enjoy it and lap it up. But the ordinary people who are on the breadline and who are they're not cash rich, neither are they heat rich or or whatever. They're suffering and they can't seem to see any way out of this, and they're going to perish in their houses and their homes, as I said, for lack of finance to heat the houses.
What I'm hearing from you, Matty, is that an increasing number of people are going to fall into the poverty trap. We're going to have a huge increase in the number of people that are going to be suffering from food poverty and from fuel poverty. People that are on low incomes, people that are trying to survive in social welfare, young people that are struggling to get to work, the extra cost of fuel for their cars. Matty, just to finish up now, what would you like to see happening, or what proposals would you have for tackling climate change?
Well, tackling to put money in people's pockets to mitigate the actions that we've taken, climate change mitigation measures. We're calling for a mini budget, nothing short, where everybody is looked after, the low income people, small farmers, and indeed the family carers don't get a shilling. So it's impossible. And when I saw a figure at the weekend where there's only one of many oil companies, BP, made over 170 billion euro profit or dollar profit last year. So what's going on? There's a con job going on here. We're punitive and punishing ordinary citizens while big conglomerates are gaining. And that's the way it is. And that's the way it's gone. I said this in the Dáil last week. They were serving big corporate bodies, and we're not looking after our people, which we're elected to do.
Matty, we do know that climate change is happening, and we do know that we need to reduce our carbon footprint. How do you propose that we do that? The government is using carbon taxes as a mechanism to, I suppose, coerce people into using less fuel and less energy. But as we've already said, that's mitigating against low-income people and going to drive them into impoverishment. What do you propose to?
I propose a carrot rather than a stick. Coercion didn't work in Ireland for 600 years of British rule. I'm proposing that we be fair, that we tax the aviation fuel, we tax the high flyers, we tax the big moguls and the oil companies that make those kind of hundreds of billions of profit. Why expect the ordinary people to carry it on their back? There'll be hunchbacks and they'll be beaten down. They can't afford it and they can't live. They must live too, and educate their children and put food on the table. So we're all for time. We must be fair about it, and we must not go like Héla. It's not punishing the ordinary people while an aviation fuel can fly all over the world for Paddy's Day as they will, and we must promote our country. No carbon tax on that fuel. So who's cutting who?
On that note, we shall end, Matty. Thank you so much for taking time out today from your clinic. I know that you have a very heavy work schedule this afternoon. So until we meet again, Matty, Bannock Day Earth.
I was good fan, and I'll say it again, happy Valentine's Day. Thank you.
To those of you who have been watching, I would like to thank you. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 Media is a new online news platform. We will never ask for monetary donations, but what we do ask is for you to share this video to get it out to a much wider platform. Until we meet again, from those of us here at the state we're in, Bannock Day 𝗷𝗓 𝗔𝗓.